Hi everyone. I wanted to take a opportunity to make a YouTube about bags because I was getting some questions in the um, Pocket Styler Studio Facebook group um, to kind of just go over, you know, how do you get more perspective in bags and um, ways to create dimension in bags because as you can see, the initial default template for most of these bags is just very just 2D and flat. I think this bag, this one, this one, this one, they're all very flat. The only bags that seem to have some of the pre-built in dimension shape are these ones. See, there's two on the bottom. This one, the circle one a little bit, this one a little bit. But it's kind of hard because, you know, when you're trying to stand out in the shop and, get some movement on your leveling for your design studio to open up more spots, making a unique bag or something special in your style is really important. So getting out of these default shapes as soon as possible really helps with that. So there's how do I say this? There's ways to do this that are like beginner friendly, and then there's some very advanced ways to get ahead, and some mid-range ways. But you kind of have to either stick to basics or get fancy. So yeah. So I'll show you a couple ways to keep it kind of basic but make some immediate changes. And then I'll show you the more advanced ways to do it. Something that helps sometimes, and you'll have to decide what's the best for you, is sometimes turning off the model is actually really helpful because you can really just focus on the bag itself. What's helpful though about having the model on is that if you don't want to lose perspective of where the upper part of the bag is being held in her hand, or if you want to make sure that you're not going too off course with, if you manipulate, turn on your points and lines, and if you're trying to, manipulate the shape a bit more, so, like for example, say you want to, make this a bit wider, like you're not going to lose perspective of her, of the shape. I was really struggling with how I'm going to sort of give a lesson in this, only because a lot of this does have to do with just like beginner level perspective in drawing. And if you don't really have a lot of experience with drawing perspective, this could be potentially a bit challenging for you. But basically, everything has, at some point in a perspective view, something has three sides: a front, a side, and a top. Okay, so when you're trying to make your bags, and we want to have a side, know that you're going to have a front, but then you're also going to have a top. Okay. And so if you do start changing the shape here, to kind of play around with a more unique side, or you want to, maybe you want to make it really skinny, maybe it's a purse that has a fuller type bottom. These are all things you have to keep in mind when you're altering the perspective to not break the the buyer's perspective in reality, that it makes sense, like, because I've seen some really weird shapes, and it's just very clear that the person kind of lost control of the perspective of the bag, which happens, you know. What are you going to do? It happens. So one thing you can do is, you know, like I just did, like I came in and I manipulated the side a bit more to make it more round, right? Remember, down here is where the shape was. This is where the shape is for now. I do need to get a line up here, because so I've created a width right here. See right here? I've created a width, and I need to make sure that this side mirrors the width I've got going here, which means that I need to make sure that this space here is very similar to this space here. Now you see I'm missing the line that goes across to create that edge. I'm just trying to decide right now what's going to be the best way for me to get that, because I don't want to be moving this too much, but it does look like this is the spare line. So this one is going to create the gap, which I don't want to have that empty space. So it's going to be this one. Well, I got to make sure I put this back. There we go. So I might want to just add a line here. Let's see if I can add a line, because I want to sort of pull. There we go. So this is one way you can do it. See, now I can pull straight across. And I can already tell that this is off center. You see how it's wider here and skinnier here, but this line is sort of crooked. Well, I kind of want to make it more straight across, you know. So it's going to take a little bit of manipulating. Now, the other thing that I've lost control of now is my handles they're not matching. So my next step would be just to kind of make sure I go in and let's get the handles of these purses. This purse, not plural, because it's just a purse here. Again, I apologize. I'm just a hobby artist, just trying to share some tips and tricks of how I manipulate these assets in the tool. And it's hard for me sometimes to talk when I'm in the process of creating something. But if you're going to keep just like the basic, the basic bag and the basic handles, and you're not really going to, change too much, turn this off so you can see from a distance. It's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Okay, so I have now created more. I've got my three sides. I've got my top, my front, my side. Obviously there's, I got to go back and fix that, because that's got to be, just do it so it's right on top of each other. Okay. There, now I've got a bag, right? And this is I need to kind of fix that. You're just going to have to go back and forth and sort of tweak that stuff. And at this point, I might turn off the model because I've got enough of the perspective going, and I want to go on to designing. Immediately, though, I want you to just visually see that I have a very, very dark left side and a very, very bright right side. The default shadow in the purses is really, really unfortunate. Because even if I were to turn the shadow down here now, if I go into fabric and like make this a green, look, the shadow just reset itself, even though I turned it down and try to get rid of it. And it's annoying because even if you move on to pattern now, even if you move on to a different texture, it'll keep resetting itself no matter how many times you turn it down. So one of the things I do is I just be really careful to pick my color. I like this kind of spring green bag. I think that looks really nice. Okay, so now when I go into shadow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the base color of the bag, and I'm going to turn it to sort of a brighter, like its brightest setting. And I'll turn it down, but again, like I said, it's not going to do anything. But at least this way, I've sort of tricked the shadow layer into being there, but in the way that I need it to behave. So you might just consider doing that first thing once you know the fabric you're going to use. And then for outline, I'm going to stick to this green, but I'm just going to kind of adjust it here. Okay, and then I'm going to just copy that up onto the upper part just to have that done so it's all one bag, okay? So now I have this cute green bag. And of course, now we got to deal with decorating it and getting it look, because it looks very cartoony and 2D, right? So at this point, I don't feel like going into massive painting details with you, because in a lot of the other tutorials I've done, a bag start to finish, or not a bag, but like a garment start to finish, and I feel like I've given you guys all a lot of techniques for painting and pattern and stuff. So I want to really kind of stay focused on how do you manipulate bag shapes, because I feel like that's sort of where people are getting stuck right now. I feel like you guys can come up with your own designs and patterns. You don't really need a lesson in that. So let's just keep moving on with how do you create bag shapes. How do we keep manipulating bag shapes? So this is step one. So this is step one of how could you transform these bags like that. Let's create a new bag shape. I know it's very tempting to go back to that green bag and just make it really perfect, but we're not going to do that. So so let's go into this shape. So this shape I think is kind of cute because it already has some of this kind of round bagginess. So ways you can kind of alter this shape is, again, you can always come in here, and adjust, all of this stuff. You can make it a different kind of round. This is a really great bag for if you want to make like a sack type shape. Now, some things that are different about this type of bag shape, when you have something round, right? Something that doesn't have a very clear, 3D, side, is how would this bag behave? How, if this was cloth, right, and not like a leather shape, some of this is going to have to be done through painting. I had a tutorial that was not a video in the Pocket Styler Studio Facebook group where I'd go over how you would take like a detail shape. So you go into details and grab one of these shapes, and then what you could do is you could use this as like a scrap of fabric, like consider this sort of like your extra fabric piece. And one thing you can do is you can put it, kind of on the edge of where you think this might have its side edge, right? But you might have to actually, again, you're going to have to work with perspective, but you might actually shrink this side in just a little bit to make room. Otherwise, it'll look really imbalanced. So you're going to have to work with, again, like if you're trying to sort of trick the eye, you got to make it a little bit believable, right? So we'll get this in here. And of course it's not bulging out that far, so we're just gonna give it like a little bit of roundness here. Okay. And now I've sort of created a, you know, an extra piece here. And if you're like really like, oh man, I don't want that. That red really throws me off. Well, then just make it blue, and then maybe make it just a little bit of a darker blue so you can see, you know, you have that reminder, right? But if you're going to do this, you know, be mindful of, you know, what's happening in this space. Maybe up here you're going to have to add, you know, another area that's got, you know, where you might see just a little peek of this extra part here, right? Let's see which one does what. Okay. And sometimes finding the right one of these squares is always kind of fun. Okay, and then we'll take this and clone it on here. But now I've taken this bag now, you know, and I've added dimension to it, right? And you don't have to paint it on. This is all, you know, very accessible, very easy, just some shape manipulations, right? Okay. Okay, so let's look at another bag shape. And this is what I would call very beginner level ways to manipulate the shapes. I'll move on to the advanced stuff soon. Let's see. This shape is a sort of popular shape. Again, remember with points and lines, say I want to just make this bigger, like this whole purse is just kind of small. And I want to make everything kind of big. So maybe we're going to leave one anchor point here, right? But look, by hitting control and clicking on each of these dots, I've connected them so that now when I pull, I can move everything at once, right? This is looking more like a bowling bag now. Oh, so again, like I do want to create some, maybe I go a little bit extra out on this edge here. Look at, to sort of start creating some of that. Like where's this bag corner going to end? If this had like this extra shape here, right, and we're going to show some perspective, you know, maybe this corner point is going to be more where it might be. Maybe this point comes out like that, right? You're sort of like pre-gaming where some of that perspective might be. And I want to see if I can do something here, because it would be really helpful if I could. What I'm trying to do is create that line. Oh yeah, okay. So I know that I need to have a seam come up here, right? So you saw what I did. I just added a point right here between the two, and now I'm gonna, you know, bring these two together so it's very seamless. And I'm gonna bring this up to kind of where I think it might start to go across. And I'm going to now merge these guys in. I got to kind of remember, we've got this sort of rounded shape here. And if this line isn't behaving, no matter what you do, like it is now, but if it wasn't, you can always add another point in here to help it get there. But I think I got it. Okay. All right. And then now I might add a point in here because I want to I want to keep this line, connected here, but I want to have another line that I drag out this way so I can, let's get this where I think the top might be, right? And then it's not going to go over all the way. So we know this line's going to create the gap, and so it's this other second line that I need right here. Wait, you might have, you might, oh my gosh, you might have, it might take a couple tries to get the line that you need. I've noticed this gets a little squirrely sometimes. Okay. So let's get rid of that one. Let's move this one back here. Okay, and then this was the line that I needed. Sort of create the end here. Yeah. So this is that creative process, right? This is like, figuring it out. How's it gonna get where you need to get? Okay. That's looking a little bit ratchet, but that's all right. Maybe this comes down and is a little bit more flat to help. Okay. And again, the shadow is just such a pain, but I'll just do a gray. Just so we can see what I was trying to do. Okay. So those are some other ways. So these are all, so I think I've given enough examples of sort of the beginner ways that you could create that side panel on some of these bags. Okay. So let's move on to some more complicated, sort of mid to intermediate ways to make the bags. So let's get a new purse. So say you've gone to Pinterest or Instagram or Google image search and you found a bag that you really like, and now you want to make it. And you pull up all these default shapes and there's really nothing here. That's fine. 'Cause you can draw it on there. And I'll show you what I mean. And so when I do find an image ref of a purse that I like, a lot of the times the handbag handles are fine. Like I don't really need to manipulate the handbag handles that much. And so sometimes what I like to do is find a handbag handle that's sort of in the dimension of what I'm looking for in these default shapes and keep it. So I do like the perspective of this one. I like that it's long and strappy. This is also another handle that's very nice. This one's a really cool handle, especially if you're going to make kind of like a wider bag. This handle's good, but it's it's very perspective-y and twisted. So I'm going to pick this handbag handle, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I am going to make the bottom not exist because I kind of want to do like that invisible detail layer with the bottom. I might leave the outline part just on. And at this point, what you can do is go into your points and lines and, get rid of, have some top and bottom ones, but get rid of everything else that isn't needed, even your perspective ones. You keep the anchor point one, maybe get rid of this one, get rid of this. And use these points now as if they were like an invisible detail, and then, start manipulating your shape, right? You're like, oh, I really want to make, I don't know. I really want to make a really cool shape. Oh, I just just hit undo and get back to where you need to. I want to have this be this kind of mod looking, swoopy type, bag thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to show you guys how you can manipulate it. So say you have like this kind of bag, whatever, and then now you can go in and you can go into details. You can, if you're like, oh, I really need to remember the perspective on there. Well, if you can either like draw it on just as a reminder. You can grab your brush here, and this line dash brush, I just personally really like it. I turn it down to size 1 and I turn the spacing down. But you might just go in here and just go, okay, wait, I got to remember this bag's going to have, a bit of there's going to be, this kind of, whatever top, this kind of side panel here. And then I might make sure then that when I'm doing my points and lines, I'm giving room for this perspective. Maybe this is going to actually need to go out here. Maybe this is going to need to go out here. Maybe this is a different anchor point, So you can actually draw in your dimensions. Another thing you can do is just make this bag space, create invisible detail with this bottom layer bag. Maybe you're like, wow, I really see the shape. Say you have your image ref and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to make a bag and it's going to be, oh wait, I got to turn down. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I've got the handles. My bag's going to just kind of be this, I really want this kind of shape here, or I really want this kind of shape here. Like a lot of times the bags aren't really that significantly different, right, in the shape. So you might just like take your pen, your brush tool and draw the bag. You can just draw the shape you're trying to get. And if you always know that this side is going to need to have some kind of like, panel here, and there's going to be a panel here, then who knows, whatever shape this could be, just, and if you need to practice, you could always just, I don't know, just keep practicing, those shapes, just keep drawing them over and over and over again. So it's in your head that there's going to be some perspective here. And if you want to draw like, a cute little circle bag, or say you want to do something that has more of a, a panel here, well, it's still going to have a bit of a, a curve here. There's still going to be, maybe some sort of thing here, right? So like say, okay, we'll just say, for example, we want to make something here. That one's a little bit off. Oh, wow. That's really bad. Okay, whatever. So then you could go back to your turn on your points and lines, and now we can just start, manipulating this into your bag shape, right? Just turn on all the points and lines, get everything lined up, right? And you're like, oh, well, I need more points and lines. Well, you've got them. You could even, let's get this over here. Let's pull that up. Just keep, watching the color of the line you're on here. So I need this. There we go. I need this pink one. And then I need this orange one. Right? And you're like, oh, well, I'm up here. I need to go across. Well, this is where you can decide, like, oh, well, does this actually need, because I'm going to do a pattern, or I'm going to do like leather or something on this top panel. Well, then maybe this is where you're going to put in, for this panel piece, maybe this is where you're going to put in a top part, right? And you might want to just stay right here, right there. Okay, and then you're like, well, what about that piece in the back? Well, you can also just add that here, go all the way across. Oh, a little tricky. I've noticed sometimes this is a little bit tricky. And then you can make sure that this is, obviously in the perspective, the right. It's going to be, down a bit. And then now you can go back to that lower part, make sure your outline is on. Turn your fabric back on. You can erase this brush now. And, there you go. Now you've sort of created the shape. And of course, it's out of alignment and all that good stuff. And then turn your model back on just to kind of make sure that you don't have a funky shape. Maybe this actually needs to come down more to be more realistic, right? And then now I've created, a shape that I like that's unique to me, okay? And I can tell though that this, if you see, look at this, perspective is off. So that's just really going to be the biggest part of doing these bags, is just, figuring out what is the realistic perspective. Like that looks better. Because it's not like a full angle. She's tilted a little bit, but she's not like at a full tilt. So her bag isn't going to be, 100%, crazy. Let me just double check that I've gone over a few of these challenges. But yeah, I mean, that's just how I've kind of handled bags, is you either, you add in panel pieces, you manipulate shapes, you turn everything off and you just draw it. Oh yeah, and don't forget these cool pocket stuff. These cool pocket pieces here. I don't feel like they get used enough in purses, but these are really cute shapes to add onto your purse that can really, and remember, all of this could be manipulated. So if you want to, keep it curved, to kind of go with the bag, or I don't know. There's so many cute things you can do with a lot of these pockets. I just feel like they don't get used enough, and they're really great for purses. And then, of course, pattern and texture. We do have some leather things. Not a huge fan of these leather things, as you've heard me say in other videos. Only because, and if you want to manipulate these textures, these fabric textures, It's going to be in this fabric layer. You can press on these three dots and hit transform. And then you can make it bigger, you know, bigger or smaller depending on what you need. Um, there's also ways in the texture opacity you could make it even stronger. Um, color opacity is more about like transparency of the actual color. Texture opacity is if you want just like a little bit of texture or a lot. Um, you might have to go in here and fix the glare. And again, that shadow is just being tricky. But now you can go into pattern and add some pattern stuff to it. But again, like this is not enough. Like this still keeps everything super flat. Everything here is still super flat, and not great. So that's just not good enough, you know. So just make sure you're coming in here and considering, you know, just does this bag need maybe to be brought in here a little bit, you know, make room for that side panel maybe a little bit. And play with perspective, play with how would this look, right? And sometimes we don't really see the exact end of this sign. And this fabric is just a bit darker. I don't know. That's not working out very well, but you just have to be careful. You just have to be careful with this perspective stuff that you're not making a weird, you know, that you're not making it worse. I don't know how to say that. You know, that it's realistic. But yeah. And then everything else comes down to shading. You know, just like I've done with other all my other tutorials about shading, shading in folds, making sure, you know, your opacity and flow is low, coming in here and, you know, going around the color wheel to find the right shadow of color that's not going to be a black. You know, all this good stuff. Bags have their own unique points of shadow that are really important. I'm trying to think of what else is there to say. Like when you're doing shading of your side panels, it's really important to remember that it's going to be, you know, where are these darker moments in the bag? Well, it's always going to be, you know, where towards the bottom. It's going to be, you know, maybe, you know, where it's sort of in the middle if there was some depth there. Try to think what else I would say about that. I don't know, like wherever the fabric starts to turn under, right? Wherever it starts to go underneath where there's no light, that's where I tend to put my darker shadows, you know. So if like this side of the bag is gonna have some light, then I might add that here where it's touch, you know. And then sometimes it's nice to put a bit of a highlight, you know, where the bag might have a peak, you know, before it rolls over. And there you can kind of see, you know, it's giving some extra dimension. Sometimes you can kind of fake on, and that's the other thing too, like if you are, and again, this is more of an advanced way of doing the bag. I know I've added like shapes on here, but let's go back to, I wonder if I have that other bag here. Did I? No. Okay. So this is like again, like another advanced level thing to do is if you want to keep like with this bag, or this bag I really love. This bag you've seen I use a lot for like the book bag, the bag with the dog and everything in it, and I've sort of changed it here. But one thing I do for this bag here is I will just go ahead and paint on my side panel instead of, you know, using any perspective or lines. I will go ahead and actually, let's pull this darker shadow colors. So this, you know, the other thing to do is just to, you know, paint on this. Well, you know, you've got the dimension going, and then you can just, you know, paint on that side. So if you just want to keep everything, you know, one unit, you can also just, you know, paint on your shadows. So, you know, there's that opportunity as well. Yeah. Trying to think what else I could tell. I don't know. I mean, the bags are really fun. I mean, one thing I really love about doing bags is the fact that they're such a small space. It's such a delight to work in a bag space because they are so small. You can really just, because it doesn't take super long time to get the texture you want, you can go ahead and just, you know, really go crazy with decor and details and items. But my advice would be for anyone who wants to make something unique with your bags, you know, just really explore these points and lines to, you know, manipulate your shape. If you have an image ref, you know, maybe you just need to do what I taught you about, you know, turning down all the property points of this upper part layer, and just look at you know, look at these lines. You know, how is this, you know, maybe it's, instead of having this top part of the clutch be like an envelope type, you know, maybe it's like a bar across, you know, maybe it's actually smaller, maybe it's this, you know. It's really going to be up to you to make this magic happen, get the shapes that you want, you know, have fun. It just takes a little bit of time and effort, but it's worth it in the end, because then you're going to end up having, you know, a really cool looking bag that you want, or purse or clutch, or, you know, and then painting and shading it is always its own little journey as well. Right. Trying to I'm trying to give some room for and again maybe this upper part is where here let's put that back and let's put that back there. And again, just trying to create that side panel. Yeah, and whenever these points and lines aren't behaving the way that you want them to, add more points and lines, right? Okay. Now I've got some interesting looking clutch thing I can do. I don't know. So, yeah. It's not a very big lesson because I'm not going into a lot of textures and details and shadings because I've done those in those other videos. But for those who just want kind of a quick lesson or need a visual to see like how to get out of these default shapes, these are my advices and this is how I would do it. And yeah, I really hope it helps. If you have any more questions about this, you can post them in the comments. I'll try to help. Or, in our Pocket Styler Studio Tool Facebook group, I'm also available for any more questions or help. Yeah. But that's all the information I have. That's all the tips and tricks that I've been doing for my bags in the shop. And I just really look forward to seeing what you can make. All right, have fun.